This program on investing under regulation crowdfunding is not investment advice.
Rising with the crowd, power unbound, change makers lead where hope is found. Superpowers for good, shaping the fate. Investors and dreamers open the gate. Supercross stands loud, proud and true, building tomorrow for me and you.
Hello, everyone. Welcome. Have you ever thought about whether there isn't a better way to help companies succeed? So many startups fail. And wouldn't it be great if startups that could save lives had a better chance of success? Well, my guest today has got it figured out, so you don't want to miss this episode. Listen, welcome to the Super Crowd Presents Superpowers for Good. I'm your host, Devin Thorpe, and my guest today is David Kiewlich. He is the founder of Badass Labs and Tomorrow Biotech, and he runs an incubator that, among other things, has a 95% success rate, which is about the inverse of the customary success rate for startups. Amazing. David, welcome to the show.
Well, thank you, Devin. I really appreciate the opportunity to chat.
Well, as you and I were visiting, was it last week or two ago, we were chatting a little bit about what you're doing, and it's just astounding, right? And so I really wanted to learn more. I'm excited to share what you're doing with our community, but we focus so much of our time and attention on people who are making the world a better place. And of course, saving lives is so essential to making the world a better place. And Tomorrow Biotech, Badass Labs, that's what you're doing. Give us a quick overview, and then I want to really drill down into what makes it work, that you're so much more successful than the rest of us.
Sure. So I launched the incubator, which is the Bay Area Disruptor and Startup Support Labs. So that acronym's down to Badass Labs. I started this in 2019. It's a 501c3 nonprofit. And the whole idea of this was just to make it easier for founders to get everything done. I personally have been a serial biotech founder 6 times. And, my experiences in many of the incubators that I used over the years was that it really was sort of the school of hard knocks. There was very little guidance, there was very little support, and most of the founders, about 80% of the time, are first time founders. And so this is a very difficult situation to navigate. So ultimately, the goal was, how do we make it easier for them to get things done, prevent what I call rookie mistakes, and otherwise allow them to focus on what execution requires so that they are able to move their projects forward more quickly, which ultimately makes them more interesting to investors, as well as getting those ideas into the marketplace so that they can have impact.
It is inspiring work, and but I've got to think it's really been kind of a hard fought education in some ways, right? It isn't obvious, or everyone would be doing what you're doing. So walk us through a little bit of some of what are those support elements that you put around the businesses, and what are some of the real keys to executing successfully that so many must be missing?
Well, we don't have 3.5 hours to talk about all of it, but and I jest a little bit. But ultimately, the way we approach it really is, how can we make it easier? How can we take what I call low value, high risk tasks off of the responsibility of these early founders? Because ultimately, they would be hiring people to do those jobs when they're a little more mature, maybe have a little more money in the bank. But ultimately, they need to understand what those jobs are so that they can pick the right people and have criteria to find 9 out of 10 skill set people to get the job done. So we take those tasks over, and I'll give you one example. So one of the things that we do, which is somewhat unique, is we do a full procurement system for all of the companies within the spaces. This is not just sort of a contract, but it's full service. So we're placing the orders, mitigating the back orders, dealing with returns, dealing with broken items, things that are incorrect, all of the various aspects of it. And so this is saving the individual founders a very substantial amount of time. So, for example, we did a quick case study of a two-person startup, and we were saving them more than 70 hours of time focused on just procurement, so that they could reuse that time more specifically for higher value tasks. But also, because it's a pooled spend model, it allows us to be one giant customer instead of many little ones. And so this gives us far stronger negotiation power. And that way we're able to manage pricing a lot better than what individual startups could possibly do. So it's really saving them a ton of money as well. Historically, we see about a doubling of the runway for the companies in our spaces. And then finally, we're doing all of the accounting and regulatory paperwork so that the founders have everything that they need to be able to do their taxes, to be able to report for grants, report in due diligence, etc., so that they look like a more professional, more complete company, because ultimately that's what we want them to look like. We want them to understand why this is critical so that they are able to really focus and execute. And this is one aspect that really supports them in a way that otherwise would be extremely distracting and time consuming. And we find that this one thing by itself is a significantly impactful modern, addition. And so this is one of many, but this is a good example.
I think those are great examples. Being an old finance guy myself, I kind of relate to that more closely. But I think of all the regulatory. I mean, it's small, simple stuff for people who do it all the time. But for a founder who does it once a year, a 5-minute task can take 2 hours. Figuring out how to do it, and then if you just say, well, I'll let it go and I don't do it, then suddenly you could be seriously out of compliance with something really stupid and petty that mushrooms in cost and implications, and yet your team could do the task in 5 minutes. I get it. I see the vision. It's brilliant. Now, David, tell us how you screen your applicants for getting into the program, because with the success rate you're having, you must be just getting overwhelmed with ideas. What's your approach?
So on my end, I'm a PhD scientist in cell and developmental biology. So I approach this as a scientist first and foremost. I've been doing this for about 35 years, which again gives me a lot of experience on several different verticals. Personally, I've done startups in oncology, cell based therapeutics, and synthetic biology. But ultimately, the whole idea is to be able to sort of speak scientist to many of these founders. And I think that's one of the biggest things is many of the times they're so excited about the science that they're doing, they forget how to communicate that to someone who isn't another scientist. So that really helps a great deal right there. So I can understand where they're coming from and kind of what their plan is. But ultimately, I have done a lot of commercialization for all of those startups. So I can kind of plan out where this might land and where this could end up being. And that helps to inform my choice about the groups that I think are most likely to succeed. So it's a twofer on that end. And then a lot of the time, the most critical feature is how coachable the founders are. Ultimately, if they are open to guidance, if they're open to expansions and in what I call being comfortable with being vulnerable, that really is a powerful point that I know that they're going to grow. Oftentimes, when you get a founder who is very arrogant or doesn't believe that they aren't the smartest person in the room in everything that they look at and touch, that's a person that's going to be very, very difficult to improve their abilities and their skill set. So, finding coachable people is oftentimes one of the most important features of what I'm looking for.
It's a fascinating aspect to be thinking a little bit about that coachability, because I think it's a classic weakness of a lot of people who are accomplished, right? Think about how brainiac smart. I mean, you get this at some level, right? You went through a PhD program. It was grueling, right? I haven't done that. I watched my son do it. I watched other people do it. I mean, I've never talked to someone who was in a PhD program. Oftentimes, the graduates forget this pain with the glory of the parchment, right? But the sheepskin. But the reality is, I've never talked to a PhD student who wasn't miserable.
It is quite a
It's hard
challenging
work,
path. Absolutely.
and so people get to that point, and it with good. I understand these are people who are really wicked smart. And yet you need them to be able to recognize, I don't really, I may be a PhD in biology, but I really don't know much about regulatory compliance. I don't necessarily know a lot about accounting. I don't necessarily, I mean, there's a lot you don't know. So
Absolutely. And I would say along those lines, very specifically, what we find the vast majority of founders, great scientists, no doubt about it, absolutely true. But on the business side, if they've never done it before, they're really mediocre. And it's not their fault because there is no MBA class taught when you're getting a PhD. That's really a separate path. And so and then finally, sorry, the operational day-to-day sort of skill set is oftentimes completely zero for many of these founders because historically when they come from an academic institution, a university, a big research lab, etc., all of that work is done behind the scenes for them, so they really don't have a grasp of what goes into getting everything done. So when they're kind of thrust out to do it on their own, oftentimes they lack that background and they really struggle at first, and this is where what I call rookie mistakes can come in and be quite painful. But when you think about regulatory, for example, you brought that up. Um, we're required to report to 17 different government agencies, and if you know how to do it, it can be a very efficient, relatively straightforward process. But if you don't, it is opaque and difficult and overwhelming. And to your point, a mistake can be exceedingly painful at an early stage. And this is why we help them to navigate all of this, because we don't want them to find themselves in a place where bad things have happened because of errors or just omissions. But ultimately, we know that it's not that difficult. Once we start teaching them how to do it, they'll pick it up right away. But ultimately, they have to be willing to listen to what we have to say so that they're able to do that growth and become better at what they're doing on all aspects.
yeah, I just get almost giddy thinking about having that kind of support in a startup environment, because there are so many tedious tasks that founders are required to do. And I don't want to, get too much into this. I'm as lefty as they come, but some of that comes with cost. So I'm new to California. I discovered that there's, more of this paperwork in California than some of the other states in the country, and that grows out of my politics. But you need help. You need help to do all that really well and cost efficiently. So I'm just excited about what you're doing. Think about help with due diligence and finding capital and doing grant reporting. I can just see all the value. It just, man, I want to be a biotech founder. Too bad I don't know the first thing about biology. But David, we got to take a quick break. But so, folks, I'm here today with David Kiewlich. He is the founder of Tomorrow Biotech and Badass Labs, and he's got this extraordinary incubator to help biotech founders succeed and become successful. That genuinely inverts the traditional ratio of success from 5% of success to 95% success. And he's got a simple, wonderful model for doing it. What a great conversation. We're going to take a quick break. We're going to come back and talk to David about his superpower. Stick around. You do not want to miss this conversation.
Download a free copy of How to Make Money with Impact Crowdfunding. The book Sarah Hanks describes as
a fantastic overview, not just of crowdfunding investing, but of investing in general.
Andrew Savickas raved,
"This book offers unparalleled insights for anyone looking to make a difference."
Scan the QR code to get your copy.
At Super Green Live, climate capital meets innovation. Join investors and entrepreneurs building real solutions for a sustainable future. From live pitches to expert insights, discover how impact capital powers climate action.
We're looking at a future powered by innovation, a world where technology and sustainability converge for the greater good.
Be part of the movement. Register now at supergreenlive.org. Struggling to raise capital for your business? Unlock the power of the crowd with AI. My free guide, Crowdfunding Made Simple, walks you through every step to success. Get funded smarter, faster. Scan the QR code now for your free download.
Welcome back, everyone. I'm here with David Kiewlich. This has just been one of those really mind-blowing conversations that I just relish. David runs an incubator that just radically accelerates success for biotech founders. It's just incredible. Think about all the lives that can be saved by increasing success rates in that vital field. We're going to shift gears now to talk to David about his superpower. Stick around. David, you really are. I mean, I think a superhero's running around, and boy, I've got one on the show today. What is your superpower?
Well, thank you for the kind words. I would say the way I look at the world is a little different than most. Coming from pretty extreme poverty, I was basically put in charge of raising my younger brother when he was 5 and I was 7, after a really ugly, acrimonious divorce of my parents. You become sort of focused on how you can lift up and protect everyone around you, because ultimately that's what makes this more important, and what we need to do to be able to find ways to make everything better and lift all boats. So one of the things that I have historically done is try to find ways to unlock what I believe is sort of that superhuman ability that just about everybody has, but oftentimes they lack the confidence in themselves to believe it's possible. So I'll give you one quick example. The woman who runs one of our spaces, that's half of her time, and that's 25,000 square feet. She covers the better part of 20 companies. But she also does all of the purchasing for our procurement system for many dozens of companies, and that's the other half of her time. And she's been able to do this for many years without burnout, without errors, without illness. That is the point. You can imagine that if every person became as effective and as capable as that, then amazing things are able to happen. And that's how I look at the founders, is they are incredible scientists, and now we need to unlock that ability within them to be superhumans, to do even more and think bigger and be more confident to be able to accomplish things. And so it's all about building up everyone around me, because ultimately that's what matters. My personal philosophy is based on a Henry Ford quote, where he said, "It's amazing what can get done when it doesn't matter who gets credit." And if you really think about those words, oftentimes it is that need to possess something and put your thumbprint on it that oftentimes kind of gets in the way. But ultimately, if I can help these groups to be really, really incredible so that these ideas reach the marketplace and make a difference, then ultimately that's the most important thing that can be done. And on my end, I also believe personally that, when I die, I will not take a dragon's hoard of wealth with me. That's not how this works. But I can leave a legacy. And the legacy that I want to leave is that the world is a better place because I was in it. And so every opportunity to lift others, to make sure that they didn't have the same struggles that I did when I was growing up, is critical, because I believe that people are incredibly capable, but oftentimes there's one thing that's missing, and it can be something as simple as just reaching out a hand and saying, I believe in you, and I think it's going to be incredible what you're going to do, and I'm going to help you because I want to help you. And just that simple fact can oftentimes make people truly amazing.
Yeah, that wow. I, I really appreciate that. And I appreciate that, where you started. This idea that in a challenging situation, caring for your brother, you developed at a super young age something of a model for caring for others that has pervaded your life and takes you through to today, and it inspires your work and your effort to leave a meaningful legacy. Uh, I love it. As you think about your superpower, I wonder if you could share a story of one particular example. Uh, and maybe you can think of some details to share, even if it needs to be a little bit anonymized, that would help illustrate how you operate with that superpower in mind.
Sure. Well, I'll do something out of the biotech field just so that it's not focused exclusively on that. Um, Many years ago, probably 7, 8 years ago now, my family again was going through a difficult time. I was a house husband, as it were, and we had 2 kids, and the wife was looking at, layoffs in the wind. And so, what we wanted to do is make sure that, foodstuffs and things like that would not be an issue for the family should this occur. And so started looking around and talking to various stores and seeing what could be done, and realizing that a tremendous amount of food is being thrown away. And it's largely being thrown away simply because the new product is coming in and there's limited shelf space. So they need to get rid of this. And this was really true for, some of the larger wholesalers, where they'd be getting, warehouses worth of produce, for example. And so very quickly realized that, this is something that they needed to solve, but the resident food banks weren't really interested in interfacing with them. And so I decided I would be that interface. And, on my own, I, got a Prius V and started picking up this produce and then delivering it to various nonprofits throughout the San Francisco Bay Area. And over the course of about a year, I was able to manage to get somewhere between about 2/3 of 100,000 pounds. So almost, it was almost 600,000 pounds of produce moved out of this to get it away from the landfill and into nonprofits that could bring it to people so that they could eat. And this ended up covering something like 30 nonprofits throughout the San Francisco Bay Area. And this inspired a lot of other people to see that they could do these things as well. And I oftentimes feel that people are really capable, but they need to see somebody do it. And then they can, believe that they themselves can do it. Like, it's really hard to believe in yourself.
Yeah.
And so, it took a year to get this done, but it set up a system that has been able to be so impactful for so many people, simply because of a need to be sort of careful about what our income would look like, and make sure then a little more effort than what it would take to just cover myself would then cover more and more and more people. And
Yeah.
so this became sort of something that I did for, as I said, about a year and a half before I was able to hand it off to a whole team that could do all of this on a grand scale.
That's great. As we wrap up now, quickly share some ideas on how people can connect with you, how maybe they can apply to be in the program if they're a biotech founder or interested in becoming one, how people can connect and follow you on social media, email, etc. Whatever you want to share, please do.
Sure, love it. So our website, badasslabs.org, is about the incubator itself. It has the application page on it if you would like to join one of our spaces. We have multiple locations around the US, and we're expanding quite a bit. Um, This is not only biotech. We cover climate tech, planetary health, diagnostics, and human healthcare. So there's a wide variety of verticals that we will support. So feel free to apply, and if it's something that is approved for what we can help you with, then we will happily let you know. And otherwise, point you in a direction of a group that can take care of you better. In addition,
Fantastic. That's wonderful. We're so thrilled to have had you, David. I'm sorry we're out of time, but
no
I
worries.
want to wish you every success in the great work that you're doing. We just admire it and want to see you really succeed.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much, Devin. I really appreciate all of the time and getting this chance to have this conversation. And I welcome opportunities to chat with anyone who's interested. My job is to facilitate and make the world a better place. So let me know what I can do to help.
All righty now. Let's do some good.